2 weeks away from a national primary. And I want to ask all of you this simple question. There's a very good chance none of you are going to have enough delegates to the Democratic National Convention to clinch this nomination. Okay? If that happens, I want all of your opinions on this. Should the person with the most delegates at the end of this primary season be the nominee, even if they are short of a majority? Senator Sanders, I'm going to let you go last here because I know your view on this. So instead, I will start with you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Whatever the rules of the Democratic Party are, they should be followed. And if they have a process, which I believe they do,
I'm trying to do
so
this,
that
yes or no,
everybody else, everybody can.
So you want the convention to work its will?
Yes.
Senator Warren.
But a convention working its will means that people have the delegates that are pledged to them, and they keep those delegates until you come to the convention. All of the people.
All righty. Vice President Biden?
Play by the rules.
Yes or no? Leading person with the delegates, should they be the nominee or not?
No, let the process work its way out.
Mayor Buttigieg?
Not necessarily, not to lose.
Senator Klobuchar?
Let the process work.
Senator Sanders?
Well, the process includes 500 superdelegates on the second ballot. So I think
Pete Buttigieg was the most honest person there. What did Pete Buttigieg say? It depends. If it's me, fuck y'all. Give me the ballot. That was one of the most profound events in all of 2020 election. All of the debates and everything else. That event right there was one of the most profound. You must understand why. If you're a lefty, you must learn from what happened in 2020. You did your best to get involved in party politics. The public agreed with you, meaning from the standpoint of just the public in general, but especially the Democratic Party, they agreed with you. The avatar of your will gets into the race. They think he's going to win. Each and every person functioning as a party, as an entirety of a party, say, we will rather lose to Trump as opposed to allow you to win. Why do I take that perspective? I think it's somewhat of a flat fact. Each and every one of them entirely understands that if Sanders is winning at the end of this process and they rip it out of his hands, none of them are going to win after that because no Sanders supporter would vote for them. Which means all of them knows that. All of them, every last one of them know it. Which means that they would rather do that and lose to Trump as opposed to having Sanders change and reinsole the Democratic Party for a generation. That is profound. You are not the same thing. They don't see you as the same thing. And the fact that you're willing to give your support over for free makes it that much worse to some degree. Assume for the moment, just for the moment, that I'm right. And dwell with me for a moment in this mindset. If you are not a Democrat, you're part of the new left, and assume for the moment you're not a Democrat. Under that mode of thinking, under that point of view, and all I am is policy, meaning the only thing that I care about is getting the policy agenda accomplished. That is the new left. Policy is all we are. From that perspective, Joe Biden is the worst case scenario. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This content is indeed brought to you by you, and I thank you for allowing me to do it. If Joe Biden won this election, the first thing that would be said is centrism won. Now, again, you're dwelling with me from the perspective of somebody who is not a part of either of the parties, not a Democrat, not a Republican, and the only thing you care about, everything else is subordinate. Policy. That's all you want. Is that served by giving all of your support for not one concession, not even a demand, in a party that in no way would ever implement your policy agenda? Now, you've been doing it for 40 years. So when I say in no way they would do it, there's a 40-year period and track record that I can point to show they're not going to do it. And again, if your point is policy accomplished, is it best served giving your support over to a party that in no way would do that? If Joe Biden won, they would scream, centrism won! We're back in business. And they would call everything that happened with Trump an aberration. they would use Donald Trump as the boogeyman to scare liberal kids and Democratic kids into always voting Democrat regardless of what takes place. A standard also would have been undermined once again, meaning whatever you look at what it means to be a Democrat, does it have a core to it? Are there certain value sets? And when I say value sets, I don't mean this fuzzy stuff. I mean specific literal policy that you can point to that says this is what it means to be a Democrat. And there is no way ever we'd go and betray this particular standard. If a guy was running saying, I'm going to privatize Social Security, but Ted Cruz was on the other side, is it always relative? Or is that something you actually believe in? Well, another standard has just been broken. You've had a situation where the majority of the public is for legalization of marijuana, for Medicare for all, for Green New Deal, for elimination of student debt, is for $15 minimum wage, expansion of Social Security, wealth tax, changing, adjusting our electoral system to make it more transparent. And this person is against all of those things, despite the fact that the party is for those things. I hope you understand what I mean. Continuously putting somebody in that office that is in no way for the policies that you want, and I mean this from the standpoint of the left, continuously voting and lumping yourself in to the tribal politics of the Democratic Party will in no way get you what you want. You give over all your power without getting anything in return for it. Larry Summers is Joe Biden's ace buffoon in regards to the economic sector. Now, whoever becomes president is going to have to deal with a ton of economic damage. And Joe Biden is just going back to the Obama era. And the other catch, Joe Biden is a flagrant liar, so you have no idea what Joe Biden is going to do in that office. You have no capacity to influence Joe Biden. This notion of pushing a politician is nonsense. It's what they tell you. It's like hide under the desk during a nuclear bomb. It's just something they tell you to keep you occupied without necessarily having any reality to it. Accountability is best served by making them lose. That's what accountability means. And the moment you take that off the table, everything else is fair game. You have no influence. There's nothing you can do to influence at that point. Your power's lost. When you say, oh my God, I'm so marginalized and I don't understand why they pick up my policies, they don't have to. You're voting for them for who they are not because an affirmative argument for who they are. They know that at the last minute, at the very end, regardless of what you think of them, you'll still vote for them because you're so terrified of the monster in the other party. Missing the point that there are times where it is crucial for them to lose if you're ever to get anything actually accomplished, or at the very least, ever to be able to put a stake in the ground in regards to what you are as a party. But, like I said, Joe Biden will push us back to the Obama era. Now, anything that he said during the primary, to some degree, will be forgotten, or they will blame Republicans for not allowing him to get it done. But this will be the administration that you have. The notion of the left will be drowned out. All of those millions of people that wanted actual policy drowned out. Yes, they looked like they were going to be something from the standpoint of running the election, but once that election was over with, they dispersed. And there's no way of attaching those people immensely or right away, not to mention the demoralization that takes place once Joe Biden gets elected. Then all of those ideas and all of those wants of those people go away, especially the youth. The majority of the people who don't vote, or almost the majority of the people who don't vote, most of those are African Americans, people of color, and people who are making under like $30,000. I hope you understand what I mean by that. It's not that they don't vote because they're white. People who are white are engaged in the politics more, but they get something out of it. In which case, the other group that doesn't engage in politics realize they don't. So they don't engage in any real numbers or any real degree. They are actually what's right. Their issue here is that they don't necessarily set a demand. They are making the point that they are dissatisfied with the system and the fact that they don't vote. So I have no issue with that. What I wish they do is get together with me and say, these are the things that we want. And stand with me on that in the same way that I'm asking you to stand with me on that. Also, I guess my point is this. If you're from this standpoint on the left and Joe Biden loses, well, the world is different. It creates a crisis, again, a certain interregnum. The catch here is I don't necessarily know who will pick up the mantle for that interregnum from the standpoint of the left. But it would create somewhat of a crisis of losing twice to Donald Trump. In addition to creating a crisis on that standpoint, the argument would be, oh my God, the left, the youth, and blacks weren't sufficiently loyal enough and they made us lose. In which case, we, New Left, say, damn right. We told you. You accept or you don't. And beyond accept or don't, it's pretty sad and shameful that you were willing to lose to Trump as opposed to accept concessions that the American public agrees with. But yes, we didn't vote for you and you lost. But you were supposed to get our vote. Our vote was gettable. We told you what you needed to do and you didn't do it. We just wanted you to take America's agenda. You didn't want to take America's agenda, so you lost. Now, from the standpoint of somebody who's not necessarily a Democrat, you make it very clear at that point that you establish credibility, integrity in regards to what you are willing to accept and not accept. And you also gained leverage in the political system at that point. I mean, how can you not have leverage if you don't, if you had the capacity to make somebody win or lose? Now, over the course of the next 4 years, what I consider to be the New Left, where I make the point that I don't care about your political ideology. Those things are not real to me. I don't care about what you want to accomplish politically in a larger thing. Don't care. Are you for Medicare for all? Are you for the expansion of student debt? Are you for the elimination of student debt, and expansion of Social Security? Are you for a $15 increase in minimum wage? Are you for those things? And if you're for those things, even if you think we should be farther and farther, fair enough. But at the very least, are you for these? I say these because these are the ones that are most popular with the American public. And because they're most popular with the American public, I call it America's agenda. You can call it a human rights movement, whatever you want to call it. I just call it America's agenda. Accept it or not. From this particular point of view, you are pressuring the political system in a way that lefties typically haven't. And if you can get numbers, meaning all those tens of millions of supporters of Sanders that agree with this particular position, to extricate themselves from the Democratic Party, that is power, that is leverage, that is the capacity to influence even if you can't necessarily take the square. That is what you need if you're ever to get anything accomplished from the standpoint of policy. Looking at this stuff separate and distinct from party interests, especially since, like I showed you in that video, they don't consider you part of the party anyway. I hope that needs to be fundamentally understood. If Bernie Sanders ran this race, think of it for the moment. Counterfactual, yes, but think of it for the moment. If Sanders ran the race, and 30 million people who were backing Sanders, or how many ever that is, were not attached to the Democratic Party. And Sanders basically said, look, I told you I was going to support you. And I do. You got my endorsement. But I have nothing to do with those 30 million people who aren't Democrats. And unless you take on Medicare for all, they won't vote for you. They're not Democrats. Now, Joe Biden can say yay or nay, but at the end of the day, those people have just made a demand in regards to what they want and what is necessary for them, or for Joe Biden to get their support. He accepts it or not. He wins or loses or not. At the end of that, they make the point that we told you we would have given you our support if you accepted a program that the majority of the public wants. That's the people's agenda. At this point, I'm making trying to get the point across to you that your ability to leverage and to exert power on the political system, the only thing that matters is leverage. They don't care about what you want. They don't care about what's right for the public. None of this stuff matters. What matters is, do you have leverage to exert on the political system? And what gives you leverage is not being in the party, being outside of that political space, making a demand, and having millions of people with you, standing with you under that demand. And again, I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're independent. I don't care if you're libertarian. I don't care what you are. Do you agree with this? Yeah or nay? And if you stand with that with me, you at the very least have a certain degree where you start to exert pressure on a political system that for the most part has fundamentally ignored public pressure and public interest. That's where I'm at. Our political system doesn't work in this way. Compare that to the last 40 years. Under that model, Sanders would have the capacity to actually negotiate because he's not controlling something in that situation, especially when those people have very specific and clear demands and the things that they want. Now, you may negotiate away one or two things, but there are certain things that are not negotiable. And again, in that situation, whether it's accepted or not, you at least are engaging in a negotiation for something in regards to get your support. That is a much stronger position to take. And that a clear position that could have been taken in this election, but that's not the way the left thinks about it. They just give over their support for nothing. We incentivize our marginalization when we do that. I'm saying do something different. The last 40 years hasn't worked. This is the guy who we've chosen. And by the way, one last point. You realize when we choose somebody like Biden, we lose all of those people who are looking and needing material gains from the political space. Meaning the reason that the election total goes down, the people who vote goes down more and more and more, is because more and more people get dejected from the political process. Also, if you're a lefty, it also gets more and more ensconced into people's mind that this guy is the norm in regards to politics.
President Biden.
Introduce me? Okay. Am I on? Yes. Hey, good evening, Tampa. Thanks so much for tuning in. I wish we could have done this together and it gone a little more smoothly, but I'm grateful we're able to connect virtually. And thank you for your contribution and for the heroic work that you and
That's the guy they want to beat Trump. That's the guy they want to beat Trump. Are you not tired of marginal? And I do understand that Republicans are ogres. This is not a rah-rah Trump. This is something different. I'm just making a very basic point. If you extricate yourself from the standpoint of parties and you look at this stuff from the standpoint of how do I get this policy accomplished or that policy accomplished, your ability to influence is not in the political space. Your ability to influence is outside the political space. Standing under the notion of policy, those policies is all we are. Is a clear and specific demand in regards to what you want. That is something fundamentally different than what has taken place over the last 40 years in regards to mass pressure on the political system, especially from the standpoint of what I consider to be to left, and is, again, just defined by those policies. Like, share, and subscribe.